And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. I have my good friend Beth here from the Made for Movie TV podcast with me. It's a pleasure to have her back on the show again. Let's go on ahead. Let's talk about John Candy's classic role as Uncle Buck. This is mine and Beth's hands down our favorite John Hughes movie. And so, let's further ado. Let's go on ahead. Let's get on with the show. And hey, Beth, welcome to the show.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me back. How
You're
much
very
do we
welcome.
love John Candy?
We love John Candy, but we also love John Hughes as well. So
Truth.
they're both equally loved here.
Right.
That's for sure.
John squared.
Exactly. We love the Johns. But we're going to talk about this nostalgically and do this scene by scene. This is just hands down one of my favorite movies growing up. There's some things that I forgot that happened in this movie now that I actually went back and rewatched it. There's some sequences that, that I forgot about that actually I thought was, before a certain scene and stuff like that. So I just had a good time watching this movie again. But my question for you, Beth, is where do you hold this as far as nostalgia goes?
Oh, this is right up there, and especially because my mom loved Macaulay Culkin. She loved him. So, this was a movie that we watched, rented often or watched on, I don't know, it would have been streaming on, or not, they didn't call it streaming back then, but it would have been playing on like HBO, Showtime.
Mhm.
So we watched it over and over and over. Now, of course, when it came out, I was actually an adult, but I would like living with my parents while I was in college for part of that time. So it's very high nostalgic, not just the movie, but because of all of the things that surround the memories of the movie.
Most definitely. And what do you rate it as far as nostalgia out of 10 for you?
Oh, it's a 10.
The 10?
It's a 10.
Okay. All right. So I didn't see this in theaters. I remember this being on at a VHS tape, stuff like that. It would be over at everybody's home that you basically can think of. That's your best friend. It's like, hey, look, I have this new John Candy movie. Do you want to check out Uncle Buck? And I actually knew The Great Outdoors before Uncle Buck. I knew about him in Home Alone before I actually was introduced to Uncle Buck. So I'm like, what's Uncle Buck? What's it about? So we pop in the videotape and I'm laughing my butt off and everything as a kid. So nostalgically, it's going to be a 10 for me as well, just because of the fact that I just remember having memories of going to my friend's house, being introduced to this movie for the very first time. John Candy scaring the hell out of that one teenage kid, Bug. Him going over to the school and threatening the principal. This is just hands down classic John Candy. It just shows you how much a great heart that John Candy has at that time, and it was such a great movie.
It is such a great movie, and I mean, even though it may not be necessarily, I don't know what it was rated. It might not have been necessarily a family film, but it was a film about family. And I think it had so much heart in it from every character. But I think that John Hughes really knew how to add heart to a story and tell. He really knew how to tell stories about families.
He definitely did. And also, not to mention, though, this, we always talk about the kids. With this one, he knew how to shape Buck into being a not in. Here's the thing: when you get introduced to Buck, he's pretty much a single layered character.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, you get into the whole entire middle of the movie, towards the end of it, and his character winds up changing and growing.
Yeah.
So that was something I really appreciated that John Hughes did was he gave us a one layer character and then he added a second layer to him by the end of the movie where the kids transform his own heart and his way of thinking into a grown man versus a
Right.
kid.
Right.
So that was something I really loved about it. And you're right, it has so much heart to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, because I don't want to jump too far ahead, but
Mm.
when you talk about the first dimension, he's driving, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll watch the kids." And he's driving and he's like, so Tia must be 9 now. And she's like a full-on teenager. So he doesn't even like really care about anything. And then at the end, he's like beating up some teenager for Tia, which I
Right.
mean, obviously don't advocate for that, but I mean, and probably today some of that wouldn't have been put into a movie, but I mean, it's still like the point is still made that, he
Definitely.
really comes to like um love them and gets acceptance from them, because there was a lot of non-acceptance, especially by Tia, who was
No.
kind of just an angry. I mean, she's angry because she had to move from, where did they move from? Indianapolis or something like that, I think she
Indianapolis
said.
is where they
Yeah,
moved from.
yeah, to Chicago, obviously, because it's John Hughes.
Right. So let's now that we've talked about this nostalgically, let's go ahead and break these scenes down scene by scene and stripping away the nostalgia. So
Okay.
he's the kind of guy who's got a good heart of gold, buried
Mhm.
somewhere underneath that mustard stained bowling shirt. Buck's got it covered. He's got it covered, Beth, with a drill, a hatchet, and a whole lot of attitude. Grab your giant spatula, pop some popcorn, and settle in as we break down this legendary madness. As he's also breaking down the washer machine as well. So grab your giant. So here we go. You know we're in for a good time with when insults come with loose change. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about this. So, Bob and Cindy Russell and their three kids, a 15-year-old Tia, 8-year-old Miles, and 6-year-old Maisie, have recently moved from Indianapolis, Indiana to Chicago, Illinois, suburbs because of Bob's promotion. Tia resents her parents for the move. Late one night, they receive a phone call from Indianapolis informing that Cindy's father has suffered a heart attack. They make plans to leave immediately to be with him. After hearing the news, Tia accuses Cindy of abandoning her father. And then that's when we get into the whole deal where do we do what do we do with these kids? Where do we leave them off with and stuff like that? Let's get a babysitter. But here's the thing: I never got around to actually thinking that they just moved. I always thought they always lived in Chicago. I thought it just happened to be just coincidence. This is me thinking as a kid that they've been there for a long time, you know. And
Yeah, yeah, and in which case, they probably would have a lot of people to help out, but they didn't because they just moved, and then, of course, Marcy, the neighbor who they did call, she was out of town, I think, when they had to leave, so really their only option was to take the kids or call Uncle Buck.
exactly. And I like how Miles was like, I don't want that neighbor. She smells old. I don't like her. And and so then they're like, well, look, the other neighbors can't do it. Who do we get? So his brother winds up calling Buck. Hey Buck, can you go on ahead and watch our kids because we have a family emergency. My wife's father ended up having a heart attack. But I like how they do that little sound effect when they're laying down in bed. And you hear that beep as to indicate that someone is dying.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden they get the call. They wake up in the middle of the night looking for a babysitter, like I mentioned. And then Buck has the clapper, and he winds up basically awakening the whole entire neighborhood with his clapper. Just use the clapper. The gift that you gave me. Oh, okay, that's great. But what did you think of the opening scene?
I liked it. I thought it set it. I thought it set up the characters really well because we find out really clearly Uncle Buck is a single guy. Well, he's got a girlfriend, but he's a batch. He doesn't really work. We don't really know exactly what he's doing at this point, but we find out like he's not a really worker. But it's nice the way they set it up because we find out Tia has a lot of anger, and Bob and Cindy are kind of pretty typical, stereotypical parents of that time, where they're kind of on the outside, but, um, I don't know, like, they're I don't know, but a lot of John Hughes's parents are similar to them. And then, of course, we don't really know until, um, later much more about Miles and Maisie, but we do see in the beginning of the movie that, Miles is running because he's being chased by somebody, and then which I actually think that scene is like such a great precursor for Home Alone because he's like
Yeah,
running, and he's like in between the fence and the house, and then we just see this cute little Maisie who is adorable, and they just kind of all bicker in the kitchen when they come home from school. It's a
I,
great setup.
it is. It's a great setup as to who these kids are, and we're being introduced to them for the very first time. So we are actually getting to know them a lot better than but Buck is getting to get to them know better.
Right.
So we're like on the outside looking in, which is something I really get to appreciate with this film because Buck doesn't even know any, like you mentioned before, he does not know, he hasn't been around them since they were little kids, even though
Right.
Macy and Miles are still little. But Tia is now 15 years old and she hasn't seen him in God knows how long.
Yeah, because
But yeah,
Miles and Macy don't even recognize her. Recognize him at
recognize
first.
right. And another thing too is I forgot about this though too, Beth. Like in the introduction to Uncle Buck though too. I forgot that there's like a dinner scene with him and his girlfriend,
Yep.
and the girlfriend wants to go ahead and get Buck to be a grown adult. She wants him to marry her, wants him to say "I love you," and also to wants him to have a full time job at her tire place.
Mhm. And he is not into any of that. He just wants to be a swinging bachelor. I mean, I think he loves Shanice. Obviously, that storyline sort of moves along with the movie, but he just doesn't want to do anything but be who he is. And like I said, we find out he doesn't really work, but we don't really quite know why yet. It's kind of like we're gonna unpeel that onion as we go along. But he's just happy being who he is.
Exactly. He's just happy being who he is. Meanwhile, while Cindy and Bob are over there just living the life in the in suburbs and
Mhm.
everything, and because of the promotion he got and everything, you could definitely tell that Buck's brother thinks that he's probably better than him, and also to Cindy as well, because Cindy doesn't really like Bob, Uncle. I mean, you know what I mean, Uncle Buck
Yes.
at all.
Yes.
And I don't, and I think that she's really mean to him. I really don't
Right.
like how she treats him at all.
No, me neither. And she's also kind of prickly with Tia too. So there's kind of a weird sort of contentious relationship she has with Uncle Buck and kind of with Tia. But Tia's, a little bit more of a struggling teenager, just moved to a new town in her high school. But I think with Uncle Buck, it's not really super clear. I mean, I think we can pick up on cues because then pretty much as soon as they introduce Cindy and Russell, they're kind of gone out of the movie. So bye.
Right, exactly. But also, now let's talk about the scene where now Buck is driving down the road. Now, we mentioned this a little bit, but he drives an old crackling every time he turns on the ignition, it makes a loud backfire. It's a 1977 Mercury Marquise. And the thing that I laughed my ass off is I feel like the car is a character in its own self.
Oh my
As
gosh, that car.
it's who represents Buck.
Right.
So I like how the car is just as much as a character than what Buck is.
I mean, the backfiring and the people falling because they think there's gunshots is so funny. Especially at the high school, Tia's mortified, but we're getting too far ahead of ourselves. But I do love when Buck takes this really loud, awful car, and he takes it down the neighborhood, and then, and then Buck goes to the wrong. I mean, it's been so long. I mean, I don't even know. He probably hasn't even been to their house, but he goes and knocks on the wrong door.
Oh yeah, but I want to. You mentioned something though too, Beth. Like when he's driving down the road and he's mentioning the kids' names, he goes, "Yeah, it's probably Betsy. Yeah, it's Betsy and Larry. Larry. Yeah, that's it. That's their names. Larry and Betsy. Cute kids, 9 and 10." And but I was thinking to myself though too, with it being so maybe because of the fact that it's been so long since he's seen them, maybe the mother has a lot to do with the fact that he hasn't been around as
Mhm.
well.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think I got that feeling for sure that the reason that he hasn't been around has a lot to do with her. But that's also kind of sad because Bob could have pushed a little harder to have a relationship. I think maybe they just misunderstand who Buck is. I
I
think
think so too.
we're all kind of meant to at the beginning, and then I think we get a deeper understanding of who he is much later in the movie, or as the movie progresses all the way through. Actually, we get a little
Right.
bit more from him all the way through.
And then you mentioned the fact that he ends up knocking on somebody else's door. And he goes, "Come on, Bob, open the damn door. Come on!" And then next thing you know, it, here comes Bob coming out of the house because he's hearing Buck cuss at the neighbors. He goes, "Buck, what are you doing? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Get out." He goes, "Oh, that's ah." He goes on ahead and gets in there. And I just love the confrontation between Cindy and Buck, though,
Mhm.
too, because now it's been a while and everything. He goes, "So, how's it been going?" It's been going, and he goes, "Look, I just want to let you know I'm on a five-step program to help stop smoking." I now smoke cigars. I go from cigarettes. I quit cigarettes. Then after that, I went to cigars. And then after cigars, I'm going to go to tobacco. Then after tobacco, then I'll go to the nicotine gum.
It's so funny. It's so cute. Yeah, I gotta wonder how much of that is just did he improvise? I wonder because it's just some of it just feels like I don't know, just came from him.
It really does show the level of acting that John Candy has, especially whenever they have to try and bounce off of him,
Yeah,
stuff
because I
like that
I've
too.
I've heard that John Hughes was when so now this is also, I should probably say, this is only one of 8 films that John Hughes directed. He didn't direct all the films that he wrote, but he directed 8 of them, and I think you and I have talked about at least 4 of them. There's a few more. We should probably get through those one of these days, but, I think he was as far as I remember, he was okay with the actors improvising.
Yeah, he was. He was able to let them do their thing and him direct. So
Mhm.
that's something I do appreciate that John Hughes did,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I wish he had directed more films because I think he was really good at it.
I think so too. I think he's really good at what he's doing and I gets the best out of his actors though too, you know?
Correct. Yes, yes. I agree, and I think he did I mean, look at this movie has 35 years later and people are still loving it. Not just you and I, but a lot of other people. So, I mean, he really did know how to write with heart and direct with heart. I think he just seemed like John Hughes just seemed like a really nice guy, and I think he was like good to his talent, but he mined the best talent in his movies. I mean, John Candy was one of the biggest stars of Hollywood at this time. He was huge and he chose to make this movie.
Right. And I think this was if I'm not mistaken, this was actually John Hughes's first movie that he ever made as well.
I would have to go back and look. Was Vacation No, I don't think so, because this would have been in the early 90s, right? So he'd already done 16 Candles and Breakfast Club, I think.
Okay, so I got yeah, you're right. Um
This might have been one of his last that he directed. I'm not sure. That's a good question, John. I'm not sure. So many
that's
Johns we're
right.
talking about. You're John, there's John Hughes, there's John Candy, there's lots of Johns.
Exactly, exactly. But yeah, you're right. The Breakfast Club was 85. So this was 89. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I
So
was thinking for some reason I was thinking this was 90 or 91, but Home Alone would have probably been 90 or 91 then.
91, I think, for
Okay.
Home Alone, if I'm
Okay.
not mistaken.
So he would have been this would have been kind of right in the middle, but I mean he was able to get so much out of the actors that he had, even the ones that weren't that well known because really Macaulay Culkin was Home Alone made him a superstar. This was not his first movie, Macaulay Culkin, but he was young, but he was so good in it. Like John Hughes knew how to make him a good actor, help him
Right.
along.
Especially okay, we're gonna get into the scene now where
Oh yeah, yeah.
Miles first sees John Candy,
Yeah.
sees Uncle Buck for the first time, goes, "Who are you? I'm your uncle." And I like the surprised look on his face. He goes, "We have an uncle?"
He had that he had this look that was just like, like his eyes would get big and his face like his lips would kind of like almost like cartoonish and it was so cute.
It was, but it's exactly how I would wake up if I'd seen this giant, oversized guy. My parents just went and left me with this guy who has no clue at what he's doing. He's just trying to wing it. And now he's here to take care of me.
But what's so
Uh,
cute about it is that he listens to that little sort of 50s bop music. And then the kids start listening to it later on.
and also too, Beth, like there's also another thing too that I wanted to mention as well that he does that was funny, and that was the fact of whenever he's first there, he accidentally breaks the china, and he goes, "Oh, this is unbreakable china." He takes the plate and breaks it, and he goes, "Oh."
And then the conversation he has with Cindy later, like,
So where would you find one of those?
yeah, where would you find one? Oh, an antique. Oh, okay. No
Well,
reason.
at an antique shop? Oh, England. Uh,
It was so funny. I mean, that was just one of those things, though, that was like so funny because it's like so unexpected. Like these weird little unexpected things happen throughout the entire movie. That's what makes it so funny. It's not the gags, although there's a lot of physical humor. Like right when the movie opens, or like when he's packing John Hughes, it kind of reminded me of John Ritter when he did a lot of physical humor. Like he opens a closet and he goes to get a suitcase and everything falls on top of him. That's funny, but there's a lot of other really funny moments that are just unexpected.
right. And then Miles drilling him whenever he's sitting down at the
Oh
table
yeah.
too. And it feels, and I love this. And this is actually something that John Candy wrote. John Candy wrote this part for Macaulay Culkin and him.
Aw.
So he goes, "Where do you live? In the city. You have a house, apartment, own or rent? Rent. What do you do for a living? Lots of things. Where's your office? I don't have one. How come? I don't need one. Where's your wife? Don't have one. How come? It's a long story. You have your kids? No, I don't. How come? It's an even longer story. Are you my dad's brother? What's the record for consecutive questions asked? 38. You're my brother. I'm your dad's brother, all right."
That was so funny. He was so good because he's so deadpan. Macaulay Culkin. Well, they both were really deadpan when they were talking. It's so cute. He was so
It
cute.
was.
He still is cute. I mean, he's still acting. Macaulay Culkin is a legend, and he always will be. And he's still like a really good actor. So that's awesome.
It really is, and just seeing how quick he's able to bounce off of John Candy back and forth like that,
Right.
it's a hard thing to do as a
Mhm.
kid, to
Right.
become and think on his feet that quickly, and
Right.
to be able to have that chemistry with John Candy like that. That was something that was amazing to me as a kid, seeing that, and just it amazes me even now to see a little small child to be able to keep up with John Candy.
Yes. I mean, especially because, John Candy is a freaking legend at this point. Like I said, one of the biggest stars in Hollywood at this point. He's so well known, and he really was able to work with Macaulay, with all the kids in this movie. He had a great repertoire. How do you say it? What's the
Repertoire.
word? Repertoire with the actress who played Tia as well. They had great chemistry. I mean, it just all worked really well, and I think that's because he was such a good actor, and he was probably just a really kind person. But yes, you're right. Macaulay Culkin and John Candy together were really magical.
Definitely. And then you also have Buck, who immediately befriends Miles and Maisie, but the rebellious Tia is aloof, and they both engage in a battle of wills. When Buck meets Tia's obnoxious boyfriend, Bug, who's played by Jay Underwood, he
Mhm.
warns her that he is only interested in for her for sex. Buck is
Mhm.
repeatedly throws her plans to sneak away on dates with Bug. And the thing that I liked though too was the confrontation in the dinner table first at breakfast. He goes, "So, how do you
Yeah.
like your coffee? Oh, you drink coffee? Yeah, I like it black." And then after that, you have this whole entire scene where now he's taking them to school, and
In the
the
car.
yeah, and then everybody winds up ducking because of the backfire. And then he doesn't even have shocks on his car. The
Mm-mm.
shocks are just bouncing up and
Yeah, it's like
down.
it's so funny, and the car, even before the backfiring, is so loud. It's like, and Tia's so embarrassed, especially because she's still trying to fit in. But I do want to mention the Jay Underwood character. It's so funny because I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, he's so familiar looking. Why is he so familiar looking? And I look him up. Well, Casey and I on the podcast did a bonus episode of an ABC After School special called "The Day My Kid Went Punk," and he played the character who went punk. And what's so funny about that is that he also seemed like a really gentle person, and so him playing this role was so weird because he still seems like a really gentle guy, even though he's kind of in it for one thing. He still
Right.
seems like an okay guy. But it was just so funny to realize that that was the same guy because in the after school special, of course, he's got a mohawk and he's wearing makeup. So I didn't recognize him as quickly. And it was only a couple years before that. So he still looked pretty similar. He hadn't turned into a man yet or grown up completely. So that was just a side note. I just laughed when I saw that because I'm like, oh, I forgot that was him.
You see, I didn't know anything about him or anything like that either. I didn't look up his IMDb credits or anything like that. So I just know him from this one role.
Yeah, he
And
didn't.
just,
He
yeah.
was a child actor. He did a few things and then I think he retired. He's got like a newer picture on IMDb, so he might be doing stuff again, but he really did only like was there sort of a teen actor and then he kind of went off and did whatever it was he did for a long time.
But I also like how he goes, well, my name is so Bug. So you got your last name is Spray, Bug Spray. And then he also says, ever hear of a tune-up? Hee hee hee. And then Buck goes, ah ha ha ha. Ever hear of a ritual killing? Ha ha ha. I don't get it. Yeah, nah.
Yeah.
Yeah, on her face in public like that again. You'll be one. Ha ha. And
It's so funny. He just
and
Buck did not like Bug.
I didn't like him either, though. He was the most punchable face in this movie for me.
Yeah, I think that was the intent.
Yeah, and they still aggravate me even to this day. Bug still does. Cindy and Bob both aggravate me though too, as parents and stuff like that. That part never got. Here's the thing: I was even more mad at them now than I was when I was a kid. So I never outgrown that stage in my life of not liking them.
Yeah,
but
they weren't terribly likable characters for sure.
But like you mentioned, the whole entire backfire, and then you have Tia ducking out. And he goes, "You're okay," because she's ducking underneath the car.
I know, and you know what, John? I just have to say this. Her hair was such 80s magic. I loved it. And her outfits were so cool. I was like super jealous of her hair and her clothes when I watched that movie because they were like so awesome. She dressed so great. I loved it. That was like fashionable 80s stuff that she had
Trench
on.
coats, hats.
Right. And the kind of the short skirts with the dark tights and the boots, and then she had the bob. I mean, she had it all.
And then I like how Bug is also left in the dust though too. Like he almost hit Bug with the car.
Right. She should have probably done that, right?
Right, exactly. But then over the next days, he deals with a number of situations in a comedic fashion, including taking the kids to his favorite bowling alley, making enormous pancakes for Miles's birthday, injecting a drunken birthday clown from the property, speaking with the school assistant principal about Maisie, and handling the laundry when the washing machine is not working. So, what did you think of all this going on?
I thought that was really funny because I love the scene where Macaulay Culkin's character Miles is in the class and he's talks about how Buck can't get the it's because he's trying to get this washing machine the whole movie. It's not working. Oh my God, that was so funny. And then, of course, we have the neighbor Marcy coming in when he's trying to figure out a plan for this laundry. Oh, it's so funny. Just all those little silly things added up to be so funny. And then when he went in to talk to that vice principal and she had that giant wart.
Miss all the little insults at her was hilarious, and then even the little kid sitting over at the. Now this is something that I feel like might not hold up: is a guy just randomly showing up into the school and smoking a cigar, and him looking into the classrooms and stuff. Now, but it works for the '80s because it's the '80s,
right?
And it's something that I'll always. You have Tone Loc playing in the background, Wild Thing. You also have This little kid, I love how this little kid's sitting out in the principal's office too, who's afraid of the principal,
Yeah.
and goes, "Don't worry, I'll go first, so the way she goes easy on you." Okay, thank you.
He's like, "Okay, thank you." He was so cute. He had like a 2-second scene. It was so funny. And then he goes in. But you're right. I mean, that obviously wouldn't be able, they would make that differently today, but they would never be able to remake this movie, I suppose,
No,
without the talent. But that does not hold up today. But really in the 80s, people just walked. I mean, like today, or like when I had my kids were little, first of all, you had a locked door, so you got buzzed in. Then you had to go to the office and sign in. Sometimes they would take your ID even if they
mhm.
didn't know who you were. So that there would have been a lot of things happening that wouldn't have happened that way. But and then certainly insulting the vice principal wouldn't have gone well.
But you see, though, I think that if it was Bob and Cindy seeing the principal, they would have been a pushover. Bob would have been a pushover.
Oh yeah.
Cindy would have took everything that the principal said to heart because this girl's only 6 years old and she's
Right.
talking about her career as a as a 6-year-old kid.
That's the kind of thing that does hold up today. Like it's probably even worse. Like
Yeah,
the expectation of a 6-year-old child is out of like, we don't need to talk about that. But I agree with you. I think that Bob and Cindy would probably have just towed the line and maybe even apologized for their daughter, whatever silliness goes on there. But they Cindy probably would have called someone to fix the washing
right.
machine.
Especially
Or the
whenever okay,
dryer. It was the dryer. I keep saying washing
yeah,
machine. It's a
I keep on
dryer.
saying the washing machine too, but it was the dryer, I
It was a
think.
dryer, yeah, because he had the clothes, like, on the fan.
That's right.
So they would have been washed, so it was the
Right.
dryer. Did I forget, like, the exact line Macaulay Culkin says when,
Uh,
uh
well,
is it
Macy goes. Well, I thought it was Macy though for some reason,
oh, I
but
thought it was
Macy.
Macaulay Culkin.
But what happens is he goes, is your socks wet? Because my uncle can't fix the GD washing machine dryer. Blasphemy.
Blasphemy! When I saw that, I forgot about, like, him saying and I was like, "Did he really just say that?" Because I had forgotten. It was so funny, but yes, that was so funny. And
It
then
was.
oh, go
And
ahead.
and I like how he also told the principal too that he next time he comes in there, here's a quarter and get that thing removed, or else I'm gonna come back over here. I'm gonna let a rat gnaw that mole off.
Mhm.
And the look on the principal's like, like, and he just walks off, drops and then once. Get this though, it was kind of like a mic drop if you think
Mhm.
about it. The way that she threw the her pencil down after she said
Mhm.
everything, but the way that Buck throws that quarter down is a big mic drop from Uncle Buck, and he walks off, and he's like, "Got her," and
Well, that's because he didn't have any skin in the game. Like he doesn't have anything to lose by telling it like it is. What is he gonna do? Get kicked out? He's leaving, right? You know what I mean? That's what I loved about Uncle Buck is that he just says it like it is. He's not gonna take any shit from anybody, but he does punch the clown.
yes, and I don't blame him for punching the clown.
No, but you couldn't do that today. But it was funny
No,
because the clown was drunk. He showed up drunk, but I think it worked out great anyway because um that kid was like, "Why would you get a clown? Clowns are for babies," or something like that. And I don't think Miles wanted the clown anyway after that. So,
but also too, like when there's actually a quote that the clown says that's the same quote from Home Alone.
oh, what does he say? I didn't notice.
Remember whenever that one scene where Macaulay Culkin's sitting down on the couch and he's or sitting in the recliner, he's watching that one movie,
Yes.
and the old man goes, "Well, get your lousy, no good, yellow." You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, he used that. The clown basically used the same line as that character in that movie.
And I
And
think in Home Alone, didn't Macaulay Culkin like repeat? He used the line too, I think.
yeah, he
Or he
did.
was or he was also whispering along with it like he'd watched the movie before. I can't remember because it's been so long, but now that you say that I remember. Okay. That makes sense. Obviously, he was paying homage to um well, when he wrote Home Alone, he was paying homage to Uncle Buck. I can't remember, John. Do you remember what year John Candy passed away?
I think it was in like 90 something.
Yeah, I can't remember. So I wonder if it was homage for that or just to pay homage to Uncle Buck altogether. I don't know.
94. He actually died in 94. I thought it
Okay.
was 94, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember. Oh, so sad.
But but you know what though? Okay, this is actually the quote. I actually have the quote right here.
Okay.
Hey you, let me tell you something. You low life lying four flushing sack of shit. So so that's basically the quote from Home Alone.
Okay.
Because it says your low life lying for but it doesn't say the shit word on Home Alone, but this one in this quote he does.
Probably
So
because if he used shit, it might have been a rated R movie.
right,
So that's probably why he modified it a little bit. That would be my
right.
guess. But I didn't notice that until you said that, because I have to say, I think that was probably my least favorite scene in the movie, just because that clown was like, I just didn't like the clown. I'm like, get out of
I
here.
don't
Come
like the
on.
clown either, but the fact that goes get in your little rat car and leave, and he goes, "Hey, look, I can give you some dildo jokes for a week. You, I just got back from a bachelor party," and he's like, did you drink? Yeah, I had a couple. All right. Wait, you got a problem with that? So Buck punching him, and then all of a sudden the clown comes back up after he punches him. Makes me laugh. But
It's
you're
so
right. I
funny.
don't feel like they needed because I understand you need a gag. I understand that part. But at the same time, how long is the parents going to be gone? I understand that the father had a heart attack,
Yeah.
but I would think that you would wait to postpone that party because
Yeah,
of that.
especially yes, well, and especially because you got this uncle nobody knows also, and, like, we don't even know how good he's gonna be with the kids. Like, I would have absolutely, and parents would all been like, "Yeah, let's wait for the party." So that you're right, that is super weird that they kept it, but it's also weird because all of a sudden John Candy's like, "Yeah, the clown is coming," and we're like, "When did he get told there was a clown coming?"
Right.
Did I miss something? You know what I mean? Just that kind of
I felt like there was
thing.
like a scene that needed to be there that wasn't there for
Right.
that
I
setup.
think it could have absolutely been removed and it wouldn't have made any difference to the movie.
Right. I think you would have gotten the same thing out of it if you went had another bug scene from baby picking
Right.
on the boyfriend.
Yeah, that would have been funny. I mean, I don't it's weird. It's weird that that scene was in there, but then again, it could have been some kind of, I don't know. Who knows why he
Right.
put it in there? Maybe he had it for a different movie and just didn't use it and thought, "Well, I'll use it here." Who
But
knows?
but let's talk about the neighbor though coming in on
Yes,
John Candy and because who's your daddy? I'm gonna give it to you rough. I'm gonna give it to you hard. And then she's like, and then she's got the mace in her hand. But lady, you're breaking and entering
right.
and
There's that.
everything too.
Right. So that's Marcy, who is Laurie Metcalf. So for those of you who don't know, that's Roseanne's sister on Roseanne, who's been on, and she was on Big Bang Theory. She played Sheldon's mom.
That's
So
right, she did.
yeah, she did for years. So almost the whole series. Of course, she wasn't on every episode, but she's been pretty much on every episode of Roseanne and the Connor. So she's very well known. I don't think she was that well known yet in this. Or I can't remember if Roseanne was on the air yet, so I don't remember. But at any rate, yeah, she comes in and John Candy is like talking dirty, but not intentionally to the dryer. And so Marcy's like, I'm gonna find out who this is. And you're right, she walks in on, maybe they're good enough friends, but it didn't seem like it.
No, because he doesn't know her from Adam or anything like that. She's just
No,
a nosy neighbor that just
right,
happens to see this man talking dirty to a dryer.
right.
And she goes, "Who are you talking to?" And he goes, What woman are you beating up on in there?" He goes, "I'm not beating up on anyone. I'm talking to the dryer." But you're right about another thing, though, too, because Roseanne came out in, let's see here, came out in 1988.
Okay, so she would have been famous at this point. I wasn't sure. I forgot. It's so weird to me that that Roseanne came out in the 80s, but I guess it did. I don't know. It's been. I mean, just makes me feel old, I suppose. But the thing about the Marcy character too is that later on she comes back and she's like super hitting on Buck, and it's like,
Yeah.
where did that come from? Because the last scene we saw her, that wasn't the case at all. She didn't even seem all that interested. And now all of a sudden she's interested. I thought that was weird.
We'll talk about that in a minute though
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
because we'll talk about that because there's something I want to talk about with that one particular scene. But the whole entire enormous pancakes for Miles was funny.
Loved it.
Miles trading his lunch with other kids and all the kids backing away from him.
Yeah, they're like, no,
Nope.
get away. Buck.
But yeah, and then we get them going into the bowling alley
Yeah, the bowling
at this
alley.
point. And like, so Tia doesn't want to go to the bowling alley with Buck. She despises it. You have Maisie and you have Miles that are bowling, and I like how Maisie is bowling and she rolls the ball and she doesn't knock down any of the pins.
Mm-mm.
Here's, well, congratulations, Maisie. You're the first bowler that didn't knock down anything.
They were so cute. They were having a great time. Then there's that creepy dude hitting on Tia. I didn't like that. That was so creepy.
It was, and the crazy thing is, it's someone that Buck knew.
Right. That made it even creepier. It's like, oh, Buck, your friends, icky.
And I think he realizes now the kind of friends that he has, because I think we're
Yeah.
blind at times because someone that doesn't have someone who doesn't have kids like Buck does, he's not going to think anything about his friend hitting on someone. But because of the fact that it's Tia and his niece, it's kind of like he has kids, but he doesn't have kids. He has responsibilities now.
Right, now he's realizing, but he's also, I think, kind of starting to realize that maybe the way he's living is a little bit unorthodox too, because we find out in the bowling scene, I think the whole reason the whole bowling scene is in there is to find out that now Buck finds out that his gambling, his bookie is going to be in town, and so he needs to go meet with the bookie on, I think it was on, I forget what day of the week it was, but it was later on than the bowling alley. So that was why
I think it was a Friday because she said that
Yeah, the
Tia was
next
going to be back
Friday.
on Sunday.
Yes, something like that. It's like it's hard to believe. I mean, how long were they like how long we don't even know for sure how long Bob and Cindy were gone, do we?
No, we don't. We just think that it's in the course of a couple of weeks, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it sure seems like it's longer than that. It's hard to say. But yeah, so we go to the because the bowling alley thing was, I think, Saturday night. And then we find out that it's supposed to be the next Friday. He's got to go to see the bookie, and Tia had promised to babysit the kids.
Right. And this is also another thing too, is like, as a kid, did you think that this guy was a villain at all? Like, this guy coming over to hit Buck and he's taking him away from the kids, and he goes, well, come in my office, we'll talk.
I think that a lot of people were in that scene. I think he had some strange friends, acquaintances. Yes.
I can see that. So now we got all that stuff. Now we actually go into the whole entire scene now, where when Buck threatens Bug with a hatchet and attempt to bury the hatchet with him, Tia exacts revenge by making Chauncey think he is cheating on her with her neighbor.
Right.
Yeah.
Shanice calls and Tia says that Buck is out with the neighbor Marcy, and they've been going out or something to that effect. So
They go out dancing every night.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Tia's mad and sets that up so that Buck's girlfriend will be mad but at this point, Shanice has not really been in the movie much, and they haven't seen each other. They've only talked on the phone, I think.
Yeah, they only talked on the phone, and that was it. But but here's the thing: Tia listened to the bowling alley, the friends that he had, and realized, oh, he has a girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So I have leverage now to where I can actually use that against Buck. Yes. Now, if I need to, even Buck is like this when his friends don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because, and I guess we should also point out that Tia is mad at Buck because obviously Buck is trying to stop this whole thing with Bug, but Tia thinks Buck's the bad guy. She thinks Bug is like the bomb. Like, she thinks that's going to turn into a whole thing. And then there's this sort of underlying, should I sleep with him? Should I not, throughout the whole movie, that kind of plays out in really subtle ways. But Bug is really just wants to sleep with her. I think you said that earlier. But that's why Tia's so mad, and that's why she got revenge. She's like, "You're gonna mess with my relationships. Watch out."
Exactly. So I'm gonna mess with yours. And even she
Right.
mentions it to Buck because, so you had a bad day, Buck? Doesn't feel good, does it? Or anything to have someone mess with your life now, huh?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that little sass, I would have. I'm sorry, but that would have pissed me off.
Right.
But when you see her, when you see the neighbor come back, and she's dancing with Buck and stuff like that. Here's the thing. I think at first she was kind of taken back because there's somebody new inside the house that she didn't expect because she knows Bob. She knows Cindy. She doesn't know Buck. So therefore she's kind of taken back. But I think after Buck and her talk for that little 5 minutes, it made her realize, okay, well, this guy might be available.
Yeah. And I was kind of wondering, like, where this was going to go. Was he going to get rid of Shanice and go with Marcy? Or, like, maybe not just the scene, but kind of throughout, like when Marcy came in at the beginning. I'm like, I wonder where this is going. Because I had forgotten, like, that part of the storyline. And then Buck is not having it with Marcy. He's not interested at all. And so she's kind of forcing it upon. And now let's keep in mind too that back then, like Marcy really wouldn't have known that Buck was there probably because Bob and Cindy left pretty quickly and we didn't text the way we do there was no texting. It was all phone calls or seeing people. So, but Buck is like, I don't want to have anything to do with you. But he's like, fine, I'll dance one more time. And then what happens? Shanice knocks on the door and comes over.
Right. And I like how he's over there dancing at first, and then he's looking and just, oh shit. He's having a good time. And then and he goes, wait, I can explain. And she winds up taking off. And then after that, you have now the scene where it sets up where now he has to go after Tia because Tia snuck off to go somewhere to a party. But
Right.
also at that time, he's also trying to go and get the kids to go with him
Right.
to go ahead and do the horse racing.
Yeah.
This is where he has that moment.
Right. So Tia's like, I'll see you Sunday. She sneaks out. She's going to go to the party. Buck's like, I've got to take the kids. And he's driving. And then his conscience got the better of him. And he's like, I really need to find Tia because he thought he knew what was really going on. So they go to this party. And of course, the thing backfires and everybody hits the ground. And then Buck goes up into this bedroom and he's about to beat up Bug. And he realizes that Bug's actually in bed with, well, not in bed with, he's making out with a different girl who's not Tia.
Right. At that moment, though, in my mind, I'm like, okay, he's probably thinking, thank God it's not Tia.
Yes.
But I'm also pissed off at this because it's not Tia because I was right about this guy.
Right. Because 5 minutes later, he wanted, 20 minutes earlier, he wanted to be with Tia, and now he's just with another girl. So he proved himself right, and Tia now knows that Uncle Buck is right.
And even right.
Go ahead. No, she
and
didn't
even
go
Tia
home.
owns up to it. She's whenever he picks her back up from that from walking.
Right.
Because you know what? Everything you said, Buck, happened.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, are you going to tell my parents? She goes, no, I'm not going to tell your parents. She goes, and even before that, he's like, this guy's a predator. He's only after one thing and one thing only. And that's it. And I think it was the whole fact of the thing is she's already been through enough for that one night. There's no sense of, she learned her lesson. There's no sense of beating her over the head with it.
Right. Oh, I also should go backwards and say that he actually called Shanice to watch Maisie and Miles. So Shanice came back out to watch them so he could go find Tia. I forgot to mention that.
Right. And I also like how he has that come to Jesus moment with himself, though, too. It's like, what am I doing? He goes, I don't care what Tia does. I don't care. She already made her decision and everything. She can just live with it. And then he looks back at Miles. He looks back at Maisie. He goes, and you can tell he's like, what the fuck am I doing?
Right.
And he goes, I can't do this. He goes on ahead, calls Shanice. He goes, look. She goes, look, Buck, it's over. He goes, I don't care. Whatever happens, happens. This is about the kids. Tia snuck off to a party. I need your help.
Yeah.
And then at that moment, that's when she comes over. Miles interrogates her, wanting the driver's license and all that stuff. It has a Home Alone kind of flavor to it, too.
Yes. Yes.
But
That was so cute.
yeah,
He was so cute. He's like, "Driver's license."
you take it out, please.
That was definitely very Home Alone-ish, and I wonder if that, like, was a seed of the character for Home Alone.
You know what though? That's not a bad way of looking at it, because even when he flips the mail
Yeah, the
slot,
mail
right?
slot in the door.
And he sees 3 people outside. He goes and closes it back very fast. So it has a Home Alone kind of flavor to it.
Yes.
And also
Agreed.
too, I want to catch on. This is like a little small trivia fact. But at the school, right, when Buck is looking into the room,
Yeah.
there's a little girl to the right, I believe. You know what? That's actually the girl from My Girl.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't even notice that.
So that's kind of interesting. Like later on, Macaulay Culkin and her would be the ones that would actually have their own movie together
That
in
that
in
movie
the
is so
90s.
sad, I could only watch it once.
Same. I can't put myself through it.
No.
But so now we actually have Bug in the trunk.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, so what did you do with Bug? And he starts laughing. He goes, what did you do? So they open the trunk. He goes, tell Tia that you're sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And then he goes, I forgot to tell you that I'm an amateur dentist. And he looks at her, goes, and Tia has the drill in her hand. It's true.
That was
But
funny. My dad's a lawyer.
I'm gonna sue
As
your
he
balls
drives away.
off. And at that
That's
moment,
funny.
Buck takes the golf clubs and starts hitting the golf ball upside his head while he's running. He's also got the tape stuck to still
It got stuck. The duct tape stuck.
stuck. Right.
Oh, that was funny.
It was, but at that moment too, that wouldn't be played out this time either. But
No.
for the 80s, it works.
A lot of things that happened in the 80s would not happen today, but it did work. And it was funny. I mean, we shouldn't laugh, but it was funny. Buck shouldn't be beating up on 15-year-old boys, but oh well, he did.
But then at home, Tia helps Buck reconcile with
Shanice.
You say, go on ahead.
I think it's Shanice.
Shanice, yeah. But Shanice, by attending her lie and tells her that he would be a good husband and father, Buck also agrees to start his job at the garage.
Mm-hmm. So we've come full circle now. Uncle Buck is going to start a real job. He's going to give up the betting life, and I mean, presumably, like everything. It's weird the way the movie ends, because there was things I thought maybe they'll move back to Indianapolis because of the dad and Tia giving her such a hard time, and so there were some loose strings, obviously, and then obviously the parents do return.
Exactly, and then that's where the movie ends with everything. But I also like how Buck is listening in on what Tia is telling her.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, and he's also whispering, got a good sense of humor, good with kids.
Oh yes, and he's like, he's like had her memorize it, because he's like saying it with her in the other room. It's so funny because he's like going through the list of things he told Tia to say to Shanice. That was so cute. But
And
then, go ahead.
And then Shanice goes, so this is, are you sure this is you and not Buck? No, this is everything I made under my own observation.
I kind of wish at the end. So then obviously the parents come back, and actually Tia and her mother sort of make peace. But I kind of wish they had like flash forwarded or something to, like, I don't know, a scene at the hospital where, like in Parenthood, where they go to the hospital and you find out, like, whoever had the baby, I forget who it was, like something like that, where you see like Shanice having a baby, and Bob and Cindy and the kids are there. You know what I mean? Like I wish that there would have been a little more of a tied end in that. You hope that Bob and Buck reconcile, and all the kids stay close with him.
Exactly. That's what I was hoping, but instead we just get that one scene. It kind of feels like planes, trains, and automobiles, the way it ends.
Yeah, it does a little bit, yeah.
Because Tia was, as soon as the mother comes home, as soon as Cindy comes home, she sees Tia out in the hallway. She gives her mother a hug and she starts crying. Then you have Bob that comes in, and then you have John Candy that knocks over all the pots and pans because he leaned his hand over it. And then after that, they both him and his girlfriend both leave, and that's it. That's the end of the movie. That's the end of the whole entire setup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish that there was like a little bit more to it.
Yeah, a little bit more, just a little bit more like I mean, I feel like we can fill in the blanks and stuff, and that's not super uncommon for John Hughes to do, actually, just to kind of end the movie where it ends. And it makes sort of sense because, right, life goes on. There isn't always a happy ending, or you don't always know what's going to happen.
Right. There's no such thing as closure sometimes.
Right.
That's how life is. So
yeah. I would still watch this movie 100 more times. It wouldn't stop me from watching it.
Same here. And there's one other quote that I love was whenever he's listening to the radio station, you're listening to I don't have to work today. Sponsored by Shanice Cars. But still, this movie still is heartwarming. This is actually 35 years. Today makes the day of the release that Uncle Buck was released. And this movie still has heart. It still has some soul to it. Some things may feel a little dated or whatever, but underneath the surface of it all, it's still a great movie.
Agreed.
I still find myself laughing at parts. Yeah, the clown scene doesn't work, but everything else does.
Yes.
And for me, after stripping away the nostalgia, I'm going to have to go at least a 9.9.
I'm going with a 10. I loved it. Except for I would like a little more at the end and the clown thing. I think it was a great movie. It was up there with one of the best comedies I've seen.
Same. You still get some laughs out of it. You finding some stuff that you didn't realize was in there.
Right.
But yeah, all in all, fun film. Definitely enjoy watching this. If anybody's wondering where you guys can watch it at, it's actually on Netflix right now, so you can stream it. You don't have to pay anything. So go ahead, check out Uncle Buck, and tell us what you think. Tell us in the comments. Give us a 10-star, 5-star review off of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, where you guys get your podcasts from. Beth, I do have a question for you, though. What are you doing for your podcast? And tell them about it.
So we actually, John, I think I told you this, but we are actually going to start an interview YouTube channel because we've had some publicists reach out to us and ask us to do interviews, and we just didn't feel like we could do that in audio only. So we're going to keep doing audio on the Made for TV Movie Club podcast, but we're going to start doing some interviews. I don't know how regularly or anything like that, but you can find out on our socials when we start doing them.
Okay. And I do have a big announcement to make later on during next week. Rossie and I will be back doing shows on Wednesday nights, so you can catch that on Wednesday nights now. Here's the thing. The reason why Rossie has been with me on Wednesday nights is because of the fact I've been doing my House of the Dragon reviews. So now that that's over with, she's now coming back on Wednesday nights, so Rossie will be back with me over there. We're going to be reviewing a little short documentary about called Black Mark. Black Mark's a documentary about the LA Lakers player about Matt
Barnes.
Matt Barnes. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, it's about the NBA player Matt Barnes and about his life in the documentary. I'm just going to tell you this: the documentary is fantastic. I really loved watching this and everything. But yeah. We're going to be talking about that on Wednesday. And then I'm also producing and directing Rossie's show called Rossie's Clubhouse, a Sacramento-based podcast where she has different artists on. Go on and check out hers. Go on ahead and check out my friends over at the Unfiltered Studios. Check out Pedals of Support. Check out Sleevy G Show. Check out That Florida Feeling. Also, too, go on ahead and check out the Stupid History Minute with Kip. He has some great fun facts and stuff like that that goes on randomly. But yeah, check out all of us at Unfiltered Studios. And thank you again, Beth, so much for joining me for this review. It means so much to me.
Thank you, John. I always love being on the show. We have such a good time.
Yes, we do. We always do. And guys, go ahead, smash that like button, visit Beth over at the Clubhouse. And always until next time, guys, bye-bye. Later.